The house stood alone, grey and imposing, a manor forgotten by time. Emma and Lucy arrived at dusk, shadows already stretched long across the overgrown lawn. The air, thick with the smell of damp earth and decaying leaves, sent a shiver down Emma's spine. The heavy oak door creaked open, revealing a cavernous hall lost in shadows. The air inside was cold. Dust motes danced in the faint light filtering through grimy windows. Emma felt a prickle on her skin, a sense of being watched. The house sighed around them. Floorboards groaned underfoot. A sudden gust of wind rattled the windows, sending a jolt of fear through Emma.
It's a bit creepy, isn't it?
Just a bit.
But her heart hammered against her ribs. They had inherited the manor from a distant aunt. Neither had ever met the woman, nor had they ever visited the house. But now they were here, tasked with sorting through a lifetime of belongings and preparing the estate for sale.
I'll take the one at the back. You can have the master suite.
Emma hesitated. The master suite was at the end of the long, shadowy hallway. The hallway with the ornate gilded mirror at its end, the mirror that seemed to watch her. The mirror was an imposing thing, its frame intricately carved, with twisting vines and leering faces, seemed to writhe in the flickering candlelight. Emma avoided looking at it directly, but she could feel its presence, a cold, watchful presence. At night, the feeling intensified. Lying in the darkness, she imagined the mirror's gaze upon her. She could have sworn she saw movement in its depths, a flicker of something white, a trick of the light, she told herself. Just her imagination. One night she woke with a start. The room was ice cold, and the mirror was glowing faintly, as if lit from within. She sat up, heart pounding, and stared at its surface, and then she saw her, a woman, pale, with dark, haunted eyes, standing behind her own reflection. Emma gasped, scrambling back against the headboard. The figure in the mirror didn't move. It simply stared back at her, pleading. Then, as quickly as it appeared, it was gone. Emma lay awake for the rest of the night, fear a knot in her stomach. The next day she tried to dismiss the experience as a bad dream, but the image of the woman in the mirror lingered, the memory of her eyes filled with a deep, unsettling sadness. She started noticing other things. Whispers in the dead of night, shadows flitting at the edge of her vision, objects moving inexplicably. The house, once merely unsettling, was now filled with an oppressive sense of dread.
It's an old house. They creak and groan. It doesn't mean it's haunted.
But Emma knew better. Something was wrong in the house, something trapped, something desperate to be heard. She found herself drawn back to the mirror, compelled by a force she couldn't explain. One afternoon, as she stood before its antique surface, she felt a cold hand on her shoulder. She whirled around, expecting to find Lucy, but there was no one there. Only the mirror, its surface swirling with mist. And then the reflection shifted. The room around her faded, replaced by a scene from another time. The room was opulent, furnished with velvet drapes and shimmering chandeliers. A fire crackled merrily in the hearth, and standing before the fireplace was the woman from the mirror. This time Emma saw her clearly. She was beautiful, with long flowing hair and a white gown that shimmered like moonlight. But her face was etched with sadness. A man stood before her, his back to Emma so she couldn't see his face. He was yelling. His words were unintelligible, yet the venom in his voice was clear. The woman in white shrank back, her hands clasped in supplication. Then the scene dissolved, replaced once more by Emma's own terrified reflection.
It wasn't a dream. It couldn't have been. The mirror was a window into the past, and the woman in white, the lady in the mirror, was trapped here.
Driven by a need to understand, Emma began researching the history of the manor. She spent hours in the dusty attic, poring over old documents and letters. Slowly, she pieced together the story of the house's former inhabitants. The manor had once belonged to a wealthy merchant, Edward Blackwood, and his young wife, Eleanor. Edward, a cruel and jealous man, had kept Eleanor practically imprisoned within the manor walls. He'd forbidden her from seeing anyone, accusing her of infidelity and treachery. One day, Eleanor Blackwood disappeared, vanished without a trace. Her husband claimed she had run off with a lover, but the servants whispered of something more sinister. They said that Edward, in a fit of rage, had murdered his wife and hidden her body within the manor walls.
Nervous Eleanor Blackwood, the lady in white, trapped within the manor, unable to find peace.
That night, Emma stood before the mirror.
Whispering, "Eleanor, I know you're here."
The mirror rippled, the reflection wavered, and then Eleanor stood before her. Her face, etched with centuries of sorrow, held a flicker of hope.
Soft, mournful. Help me, please, help me find peace.
Determined, I have to find Eleanor's remains, to give her the peace she craves.
She spent days searching the manor, testing walls, tapping on floorboards, looking for any sign of a hidden chamber. Lucy, initially skeptical, was eventually swayed by Emma's conviction. Together they scoured the house.
Surprised. Finally, in a forgotten corner of the cellar, we found it.
A loose brick revealing a small hidden alcove. And there, concealed beneath layers of dust and cobwebs, was a skeleton. A delicate silver locket clutched in its skeletal hand. The locket bore the initials E.B., Eleanor Blackwood. As soon as the locket saw the light of day, a cold wind swept through the cellar. Dust swirled around them, and then a piercing scream echoed through the house. Emma and Lucy clung to each other, fear rooting them to the spot. Then just as suddenly silence descended, the air, no longer thick with dread, felt lighter, freer.
Relieved, Eleanor is gone, finally at peace.
They gave Eleanor Blackwood a proper burial in the local churchyard. As they laid her to rest, Emma felt a sense of closure wash over her. The manor, no longer a prison for a tormented soul, felt different, peaceful. They sold the manor soon after, but Emma never forgot the lady in the mirror. And sometimes, late at night, she imagined she could still hear Eleanor's mournful whispers, a reminder of the secrets held within the old house's walls, a reminder that sometimes the dead just want to be heard. The silence that remained was not emptiness, but a peace earned. The manor stood, no longer a haunted shell, but a testament to a story finally told. And in that quiet resolution, Emma found a strange comfort. The mirror held no more secrets.